The 100 Season 3 finale, Perverse Instantiation Part 2. This was definitely an insane finale, which had a couple of nice surprises. We got to see Lexa come back, which was really cool, and she's just destroying people. Like, the first scene when she showed up, she was just destroying a bunch of people. I was like, that's really awesome. We got to finally actually see Becca and Alie in the same scene, which I thought was pretty cool as well. Or at least in the present, it wasn't just, through flashbacks. So that was actually pretty cool at the end of the episode. We got a fairly surprising death at the very end, which I loved. The way they ended it, they built up to the next season, which I was very curious. I was like, what threat, are they going to have? Because it seemed like that, it was just like, this is happening. And then we have our big threat, but just going through this whole finale, it was like, all right, what's going to happen? I had my theories. I asked the question last time, like, who do you guys think is going to die? Fortunately, nobody died. Like, one person commented that they thought it might be Jasper. And I thought that made a bit of sense, and it would be kind of tragic because he had such a devastating story arc this season, and then they would still end up killing him. But fortunately, that didn't happen. Harper, who I finally remember her name, she doesn't end up dying either. So they end up saving her. They knock out Jasper. They're kind of just, we have our Arcadia group, and they're just kind of stuck. Like, we don't really know what to do. We at least solved the issue with Jasper, and he's tied up, so that's good. And we can't really get into the code, because then she'll find us, and she'll be able to take it down. So we have to figure out what the heck we're going to do. And they find out, once Raven looks at the code, and she realizes that Clarke is on the inside, it's like, alright, we got to do what we can. I have to do what I can, at least, to help her out. So I just love the way it all played out. Excuse me. And then we have, of course, the Capitol just in sheer chaos as it's been for the past couple episodes. A bonus, even though we didn't actually get to see her, we do find out that Indra's alive. So I was glad to hear that, because Kane showed up, and I was like, ooh, he's walking with like the random big crowd, and there's no Indra, she's not chipped or anything. It's just she's not there. So it was good to hear that she was actually, at least, she was up on the cross or whatever. So she'll be fine for the next season. She has continued to live, which I'm very happy about, because basically we only have 2 grounders if you count Octavia. They might bring Luna back. I'm curious about that, if she'll make an appearance in the next season, because they still need a commander, especially now. I mean, they spread Antari open. They used that thing on her sternum and split her open to literally pump her heart, which is just a crazy scene. So they still need a new commander for sure. We didn't see the prince in this one either, so we still technically don't know if he lived or died, but based on the way it happened where he was shot, kind of in the lower stomach region, I would assume he's still alive, but we still didn't actually get to see him, even a glimpse of him, so he might be up on the crosses or whatever. So I'm going to assume he's alive, but who knows? We just have to see what happens there. But I enjoyed everything that played out in this finale. It was like we have to... they have to do the blood transfusion for Clarke, and that's how she gets into the City of Light. Well, that's how she uses the upgraded Alie to not completely destroy herself, which almost fell apart until Abby actually, she's cut her down the middle. At first, when she cut her down the middle, I thought, okay, she's cutting her down the middle because her plan is to gather up way more blood or something like that. That's what I thought she was going to do. I thought just make a big gash and just absorb a bunch of blood or something like that, instead of trying to find a vein or anything crazy like that, because that might take time. Just split her down the middle, because she was brain dead, so she was dying anyway. Split her down the middle and just use a syringe and just suck up the blood that pulls to the top. And it was like, nope, she split her down the middle and then stuck that thing in and just ripped her wide open. I was like, holy crap, they just opened her up. She was brain dead, so it's not like there was any chance of even, saving her. But it was like, wow, that sucks for her. I mean, I hated her anyway, because, just her character, much like Pike, it was kind of they were in the exact same camp, but we knew they were going to be trouble. So it was like, yeah, still crazy though. It's still a crazy scene visually. It's like she's, cracks her open, and Murphy's just like, man, I gotta literally pump this girl's heart. I gotta just put my hand in her chest and squeeze her heart. But that was a crazy little moment. I enjoyed it. I was like, man, that's pretty intense. And he's actually squeezing her heart to get the blood pumping to save Clarke. But that was really cool. And then of course we have Octavia, who did not give enough in this episode. I mean, her first move is okay, they have all these people, climbing up the building. Since there's no pain, it was probably way easier for them to climb. They don't get tired and stuff like that. So they're just climbing up. They climb up this really tall building, which is pretty nuts. And it's like, all right, we have Octavia and we have Pike. And the way it played out, I was like, I was like, she was looking at him and stuff. I'm like, she's not gonna do it, right? Because as much as she'd want revenge, it was too risky simply for the fact that, oddly enough, they were talking about the end of the world because Alie would have just taken over everything. Oddly enough, they were talking about the end of the world, and it's just pretty insane. It was like I couldn't believe that she did that in that first scene because it's like there's so much at stake. I'm like, I get it, and based on the ending, I was like, I felt like she should have just waited for that ending scene, but she cuts him and lets the guys try to beat him up, and I guess fortunately Bellamy knows his sister, so it was just like, oh, look at that, Pike is just getting curb stomped right now, and she's just standing off to the side. So he goes in, he takes those people out, and it's like, this is already screwed up, so we have to like barricade the door because they're already getting in. There's too many, and they go through all the chaos. The people are getting in. They're just fighting people left and right, flipping people over, and we have Clarke at the very end talking, between Becca and Alie, which is like a crazy long time. She was taking her sweet time trying to figure out what to do, even though we knew she was gonna do it. But she took her sweet time. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like if they're gonna be robots, they'd basically be code if they all died on the surface anyway. But finding out that all the, I guess, nuclear sites and everything are gonna go into like full-on mass meltdown, that was interesting. I don't know anything about nuclear sites or anything like that, but it really surprised me that it would have taken almost 100 years, because it was, I want to say it was, 97 years? It wasn't exactly 100 years. So it really surprised me when she's like, oh, these things are gonna go into like full meltdown and stuff. And I'm like, it took almost 100 years for those sites to go into full meltdown. Even for everything that's happened, that seemed a little weird to me. Like, all this crazy chaos, there haven't been any people keeping track of this stuff, and yet it took 100 years for like nuclear waste to build up or anything like that before a full-on meltdown. And that really surprised me. So I'm like, alright, that's where we're going in the next season. And I just don't know what to expect. I mean, they don't have, at least not as far as we know, they don't have scientists. So I don't know what they can do. I mean, it's going to be so much nuclear waste, it's even too much for the people that came from the Ark. And that's really crazy. They have 6 months to do it. So I'm curious if they'll skip any time between this season and the next, because that seems like it would be, if they chopped it down, you're like, oh, we skipped a month or something, and they have 5 months, which is still a lot of time. So they probably will skip like maybe 3 months or 2 months, and then the next season will take place within the span of a month or so, because that's pretty much how they do it. Whereas like this whole season has only been maybe 3 weeks or so, if that. So that's probably what they'll do, is skip a bunch of time, because otherwise there'd be no real threat, and it kind of has to come down to the last minute for it to be like, we might all die and we don't know if we'll stop the nuclear threat, a second nuclear fallout. So they'll probably skip a bunch of time where it's like, we've been looking for ideas for the past 4 or 5 months and stuff, and we got nothing, we can't figure out what to do. And then of course, once we're back and watching the show, it's like, oh, we got all the answers, and they'll figure it out by the end of the next season. But I'm definitely looking forward to how this is going to play out, because seemingly, there shouldn't, I mean, this is a real world thing. Like, sometimes there are just issues that are way bigger than little wars about territory and this and that. So you would think everyone could kind of band together, but with it being the 100, I think we all know that that's not going to play out. The Ice Nation is probably going to be fine, because we'll still have the Prince, and he'll most likely have taken over. But there's going to be something. There's going to be some issue, and there's going to be fighting. Like, it won't just be like, we have to figure out what to do. There's going to be some chaos in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what it's going to be, but there's still going to be fighting as they're trying to not get killed by, a second nuclear fallout. So I'm very curious how that's supposed to play out, because seemingly there are no new enemies, and it's just a global threat. But really, we've been kind of tight-knit as far as the series is concerned. I mean, we have the capital, we have the dropship, we have Arcadia, we have the oil rig now, and well, I guess they kind of destroyed the other villages in like the last season. Obviously, Mount Weather this season. So we have like 4, possibly 5 big areas if they go back to certain places. But yeah, there's a lot. There's still a ton of stuff out there. I mean, there's all this stuff like across the water. They talk about that a lot, which we've kind of seen a little bit, like with the Mori and the people that she was with and stuff like that, and obviously the people on the rig. So there are a lot of people all over the place that we still haven't seen, and they might not give a crap. Like there might just be a lot of issues. We still haven't seen the locations of all the, even of all the clans. So there's a ton we haven't seen. We've seen the capital, but we've seen like a little bit of the. We've seen where the Ice Nation comes from a little bit, and we've seen, basically where Indra came from, and that's about Indra and Lincoln. That's about it. We've seen like maybe 2, 3 locations for the clans, and that's about it. So we still have a lot of crazy stuff that's left open, and people who might just be mad. And with there being no commander once again, that's probably what's going to cause the power struggles. Like, we need to kind of deal with this over here, but then you have, almost 100-year-old rules set up through the clans, and it's like, yeah, but we still got to deal with this, and then a bunch of people are going to die because of that. So definitely looking forward to the next season. The way everything played out, though, at the end, I love. I mean, everything's said and done. Alie officially gets destroyed. Clarke pulls the lever. It's like, we'll survive. We don't have much of a choice. So she pulls the lever. Allie's destroyed. Everybody's saved. Kane had they had a great little scene where he's like, choking Bellamy, and then he kind of breaks down from everything that happened, because he was really the last person to be chipped, not counting Clarke, who obviously wasn't taken over. Or I guess technically Jasper was, but he was like the second to last person to be chipped. And it was really cool to see that, because he went through so much, and ultimately it came down to, I want to save Abby, because that was pretty much it. It was like, he made it through all the other crazy stuff, and he had to save Abby. So I like the way they had it with him, and everyone else is kind of, finally waking up. I can't wait to see what they do with Jaha, who's the first person chip. I can't wait to see where his character goes in the next season. Like, how broken down he's going to be. They had that stuff with Kane, and that was like a couple of days. I can't imagine, what Jaha is going through, where it's like, oh, take this and kill this person and choke these people out, steal this, torture them, all this crazy stuff. He was kind of, the one in charge. He was like the first person Alie was controlling. So I can't wait to see how they play that out. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to that. And, with the way they ended it, where everything's done, Pike even saves Octavia, and she looks at him, he looks at her, and it's kind of like, it's been a crazy day, but we made it through. We did it together. And it was just like, boom, right through him. And then she jams it all the way through and just stabs him, and it's like, damn, he's dead. Like, she just stabbed him, pulls it out, he just drops to the ground. I would be stunned too. I mean, everyone's just kind of like, whoo. She just stabbed him in the heart, and she just walked off in slow motion, and that's the end of the episode. And it was a great way to end it. I was like, that was probably one of the coolest forms of revenge I've ever seen in a series, where, we had the initial scene where she made a pretty bad decision, I think, kind of cutting him in the leg in the first place. Because who knows how different it would have been, how many people they would have had to fight if they had their initial idea, to knock people out, and before they had to like rush and do the barricade thing, because like 8 people already made it in. So it was already very different from that decision on. But they make it, they win, and they're just looking at each other, and she just stabs them straight through, and make sure she stabs him straight through and just keeps it going. And he just drops to the ground, and he's dead, he's gone. And there's nothing that could really be said. I mean, Bellamy and Clarke, they just look at her, and she just looks at them, and then just turns away, and it's like, all right, he killed the man I loved. I got my revenge. That's all there is to it. I'm very curious the next conversation between Octavia and Indra as well in the next season, which we probably won't see their very first conversation, but I'm pretty sure that's going to play a part in the next season. The fact that they went through all that and she still got her revenge after everything was said and done. But satisfying way. I mean, it's crazy. They killed off like the 2 people that you could hate the most. They just had the craziest deaths. Antari just I mean, they just wiped her out. It was like, you need to kill yourself because we can't let them get to you. So they destroyed her. So she's brain dead, and they have to use her blood for Clarke. And then Pike is just surviving and surviving, and Octavia gets her revenge. And that ends out the season. And I think it was a great final scene because it's like, man, everything's kind of happy. You know, well, not happy because, you know, they had the stuff with Kane breaking down. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people that broke down as well. We had a good scene with Murphy and Amori, though. That was pretty nice where, you know, they finally got to be together and it was normal. So that was cool. It was kind of balanced out. And there's like really sad stuff with Kane, really happy stuff with Amori and Murphy, and then great, just epic moment with Pike and Octavia. So love the way they ended it. Very surprising because I thought maybe because he saved her, possibly, but it was like, no, I hate you and you're gonna die. So love the way they did it. Definitely a great ending. Definitely, of course, want to know what you guys thought about this finale, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I gotta ask what you guys are expecting for the next season. You know, maybe what will be the secondary issue, because obviously it's global nuclear war again. So, or at least global fallout, nuclear fallout. But I don't know. It should be really fun. I would assume that the commander thing is still going to be the big issue as to who's going to take over. Maybe what rules should stay the same and what rules might change, stuff like that. But there's no way it's just going to be everybody banded together after we destroyed that computer thing, and then, you know, we all work together to try to save ourselves. So there's going to be something else. But I would love to know your predictions. I think it'll be the commander thing because they'll actually have, you know, the trials, and there are no more Nightblood, so that you know, that's another thing, unless Luna secretly has like a very young child or something like that that we don't know about. So unless it's going to be her, which they'll probably go back to because some other people might actually know about her as well. And also, who knows what information everybody has, because if Alie knew everything, did all the people connected, like if Jasper knew something and then they broke everything down, does he know what happened at the Capitol? Because Alie would know, but would he know because of that connection? Like, does he retain those memories, or were those like only Alie memories? Because a bunch of people know about Luna now, if that's the case. And it's like, well, we need to find her again and convince her to come back, and, you know, possibly changing the way the clans work out and stuff. So that's something they'll have to decide. You know, the writers have to decide on their own. But like I said, I'd love to know your predictions and just what you guys want to see for the next season. I mentioned this before. I'm glad I thought about this. They did this. It was season 2. I want to say it was the beginning of season 2. Still haven't seen that random guy come back. And I mentioned that. I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the last season as well. We still have not seen that one guy who was like, he was like very disfigured, and he was almost like a hunchback who was in front of Octavia. We still have not seen that person come back. And I said this last season, I was like, I don't know if they just didn't care enough, or they didn't really think about what they were going to do with that character. But they made that seem like a big deal because that character was following her around a little bit. And then, you know, we got to see like a glimpse of them like 2 seasons ago. So I'm still waiting for that. I don't know if that's ever going to come back. I feel like I'm thinking of like, you know, Devil May Cry or something. Like I'm just waiting for the next part of that story and it's never coming. But that was something, it's still in my head every time I think about where they could go. I'm like, they still never went anywhere with that. But, you know, it was the first episode of the season, and that's what made it seem like such a big deal. It's like, oh, they're seemingly introducing a brand new character, or at least, you know, someone who might be an outcast or something like that. And they never, you know, never touched on that again. So I would love to see them go back to that idea, unless they've completely abandoned it by now. It has been, you know, 2 full seasons. But, well, technically 3, because that was like the first episode of season 2. But maybe they'll go back to it, maybe they won't. They've completely abandoned that idea by now. But I'd still like to see that, because every time I'm just like, man, whatever happened to that? Where was that supposed to go? It's just an idea in my head, because it's not like the show got canceled. Like, they've done all their other stories, and every time I'm just like, what was going on with that? Who came up with that idea, and why didn't it ever, you know, expand to anything else? So I'd love to see that come back, because it's always in my head. But like I said, I want to know your predictions, and of course, what you guys thought about this finale in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.